This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Devilishly cute Darla had teachers, parents, and the balance of the grown-up world nibbling out of the palm of her hand. With winks here and smiles there, the 15-year-old was everyone's little princess. But adults didn't know the dark Darla who dwelt beneath the perky exterior. To her classmates, she was more devilish than she was cute. Darla had a passion for anything scary. More often than not, one could find precious little Darla in the horror section of her local video store. If it had ghosties, ghoulies, or long-legged beasties, she felt compelled to see it. And when she wasn't watching spooky films, Darla took great delight in scaring the daylights out of anybody who crossed her path. To her, a practical joke would be something that caused the victim to scream or have a full-blown panic attack. Whether it was monster hands in a lunchbox or faux blood dripping from classmates' lockers, no one was safe, including the Benson brothers. Imagine the faces of Billy, Bobby, and Brian, aged 4, 6, and 8 years respectively, when darling Darla arrived to babysit. Leaving instructions for a 9 o'clock bedtime, their parents left the family home. Darla waited until she was sure they were gone. Then with a smile, now looking more sinister than cute, she reached into her knapsack. Fearing the worst, the boys broke into smiles as Darla brought out soft drinks for each of them. It was, of course, a MacGuffin, the lure, merely bait to hook the boys. Reaching back into the sack, the boy's smiles grew wider as she pulled out popcorn and other delightful snacks. On her third trip to the bag, however, the brothers' smiles vanished because Darla was holding the scariest video she owned. It was part 48 in a series of horror films in which a man wearing a goalie mask attacked people, leaving a horrible trail of victims in his wake. Huddled at one end of the couch, the Benson boys watched Darla laugh and eat popcorn while shrieks of terror emanated from the TV. Bedtime couldn't come soon enough. There'd be no whining about staying up late this night. When a bolt of lightning knocked out the town's power supply, the boys thought they were saved. But before the room grew dark, Darla had the brothers gather round a candle and told them about her favorite horror movies. Visions of vampires, werewolves, and zombies danced in the brothers' heads. When 9 o'clock finally arrived, the frightened boys insisted on sleeping in the same bed. An unusual request, as little Billy Benson still had that oh-so-cute but bothersome bedwetting problem. Hours later, with power restored, Darla answered a knock at the door. Standing there, soaked to the bone, was a pale woman with straggly hair, who introduced herself as Mrs. Benson's sister, Bonnie. She went on to say that she was late due to some car trouble. Mrs. Benson had not mentioned that her sister would be visiting, but seeing a picture of Mrs. Benson and Bonnie beside the door, Darla invited her in to dry off. Bonnie limped into the living room, where she and Darla conversed until almost midnight. It seems that Darla and Bonnie had something in common, an interest in ghosts. But then Bonnie, surprised at the time, suddenly had to leave. She said she was very sorry she'd missed her sister, that she hadn't seen her in a very long time. And with that, she left, disappearing into the rain. Just a few minutes later, the Bensons, Sr., returned home from their night out. Darla inquired if they'd had a good time. Mrs. Benson, indicating the picture of she and her sister, explained that it wasn't that kind of evening. They'd gone to a memorial service. You see, said Mrs. Benson, my only sister, Bonnie, died in a car accident 1 year ago tonight. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Oh yes, as for Darla, she now deplores the thought of watching anything scary on television. She won't even watch hockey. You know the kind of images a goalie mask can conjure up.